My then best friend was trying to convince me to visit his chiropractor, and I had no idea what a chiropractor was. So I asked my mother, who at the time worked at the local medical college. I thought she would certainly know. And when I said, "What's a chiropractor?" this scowl came over her face. And she said, "A chiropractor? Why, that's someone who cracks your bones." And I said, "Cracks your bones? You mean they fracture?" She said, "I guess they must. You can hear them snap." And I said, "Why would anyone in their right mind submit to that?" And she said, "I have no idea. I certainly wouldn't go." Well, it's often been said that contradictions lead to destruction, and I had a serious contradiction to resolve. My friend, who seemed rational and was certainly ambulatory, was extolling the virtues of chiropractic, and my mother was warning me about broken bones. So I thought, how can I find out more about this without risking life and limb? Well, I decided to call a local chiropractor and came up with what I thought was kind of a clever ruse. I told him that I was doing a report on chiropractic for school. Would it be possible to get an interview? He said, "Absolutely, come right over." So I came to his office. He dropped what he was doing, took me back into his little private office and said, "Go ahead, begin the interview." And I asked him that question that we've all been asked so many times, and in my 37 years in chiropractic, his response is still the most elegant and eloquent I think I've ever heard. And the question was simply this: what is it that chiropractors do? And he said, chiropractic is based on 4 simple concepts. He said, first, the body is a self-healing mechanism. Cut your finger, it heals. Cut the finger of a corpse, it doesn't. Life is what heals. Second, he said, the nervous system is the master system of the body. Every dimension of the human experience is processed through the nervous system. And the third item, which gave me goosebumps then and still does now, he said, when there's interference with the function of the nervous system, not only can it compromise your physical well-being, but because it distorts your perception of the world and inhibits your ability to respond to the world, it can have psycho-emotional consequences too. And when that happens to a significant number of people, you have a sick society. Fourth, he said, what I do as a chiropractor is locate and correct the cause of that interference. And I thought, wow, what a concept. Well, to make a long story short, I became his patient. He suggested that I become a chiropractor. I said, what does that involve? He said, a pilgrimage to the People's Republic of Davenport, Iowa. And I said, Davenport, Iowa? Ugh, why? And he said, because that's where it's done. I didn't know other schools existed. Indeed, Life didn't exist then. Life West didn't exist then. Sherman didn't exist then. Yes, I'm really that old. So I graduated from Palmer, and I wanted to get this idea to as many people as possible. And the best strategy at the time seemed to be teaching. So I joined the faculty, had a wonderful time teaching students. Finally, it seemed time to go over the wall, as we said, and enter clinical practice. And I ended up in Florida, and at this point, it was late 70s, early 80s, easy insurance. You know, in Florida, being sick is kind of a hobby, you know. People go into pharmacies with these coin-operated blood pressure instruments and throw them in like slots in Atlantic City, you know, hoping for an abnormal reading so they have an excuse to see their doctor. You know, they carry around vials of viscera that have been removed, Polaroids of their hemorrhoids. And in that sort of environment, it became very easy. And I became, as Pink Floyd used to say, comfortably numb because it was so easy. And I had all this stuff, and I had an easy life. But what I lacked was the intensity of the joy that I experienced when I was teaching at Palmer. So it sometimes happens, the universe has a way of giving you a wake-up call, and mine happened when I was visiting New Jersey, lying in bed, turned my head to one side. Suddenly the right SCN muscle went into spasm. The right side of my body went numb. The room started to spin, and next thing I knew, I was lying on a gurney in an emergency room, unable to move my arms or legs. People who I hadn't seen in decades were coming to visit. because they thought I would be fertilizing chrysanthemums by the end of the week. And the doctor had this horrified look on his face and said, "We have no idea what's wrong with you. Let's start with the CT scan to make sure that there's no intracranial hemorrhage." This makes sense. So they wheeled me into the gantry of the CT scanner. I'm unable to move my arms and my legs. I heard someone in the background say, "Doctor, I think he stopped breathing." And the neurologist said, "Don't worry, we have a machine that can breathe for you if necessary." And at that point, things started to spin again, and I just kind of let go, and I said, "You know, if it's time for me to die, that's okay. But if it's not, I need a body and a mind that's fully functional." Well, I woke up. Apparently I'm dead, you know, connected to all this electronic gadgetry, tubes and orifices I had forgotten I'd had. And one of the people who came to see me was this wonderful old-time chiropractor who had as much spiz in his being as he did the day he walked across the graduation stage. In fact, they didn't even want to let him in the room because he wasn't a member of my immediate family, but he had a badge that said he was a police surgeon. You know, I guess that's some kind of PBA scam, I don't know. But they let him in, palpated my atlas, and he said, to my amazement, exactly the same thing that the MD from the medical college said. Same diagnosis from that cursory exam. He said, "You don't look very good at all." And then, like a reflex, how about an adjustment? And I thought, well, the worst he can do is induce unconsciousness, and at this point, that would be welcome. So he rolled me onto my side, pulled off one of the EKG leads by accident. The alarm went off. All these people came into the room thinking I had coded or something. And I said, "What's he going to do now?" He pulls out his badge and said, "Can you help me with this exam? I have to make sure there's no evidence of foul play in this case." I'm just like, I can't believe this. So he has all these people rolling me onto my side, moving the wires and the hoses and all this stuff. He sent them out of the room, set up on my atlas, delivered a thrust, and I have never heard a sound like that emitted from a human being. It sounded like the report of a starter's pistol. It's so, and he said, "That's it," and walked out. The whole thing took about 2 minutes. Well, the next day I was able to wiggle the fingers on my right hand. Shortly thereafter, I was off the mechanical ventilator. I continued to get adjustments. I went into an intensive rehab program, and I literally was carried in on a stretcher, unable to move my arms and legs, losing the ability to breathe, and walked out of there. And it was at that point I said, I had understood chiropractic before, but I had never experienced the power of the chiropractic adjustment. And I realized at that point that what medicine had done was prevent me from dying, absolutely necessary. But what chiropractic did was release the life within my body. And at that point I said, I will never sell out this principle to the episodic symptomatic treatment of back and neck pain. Chiropractic is indeed about uniting man the spiritual with man the physical and allowing that life to express itself through matter. Well, I got to thinking about some of the people who went before us.